And if you look a little bit about the differences between Western values and Chinese values, we can certainly say that in China, personal relationships will have have much more importance than they have here. If we have business relationships, we usually deal with the organization. This means we deal with the company. If you go to Novartis, we deal with Novartis, not with Mr. X or Miss Y. You know, for us, the organization is important. In China, this is not the case. Whether it's Novartis or anything else, the person is important. I'm talking to. So it's a different approach. It's much more personal related than it is in our country. We have formal roles, clearly defined roles. This is also different in China, with much more flexibility. Things change from one day to the other. And if something changes, everything is different. This is especially true when we talk about contracts, legal contracts. You know, Western businessmen often complain that Chinese do not, follow contracts. But actually they do. But they have a different understanding of contracts. The contract today is the contract today, and if something changes, the contract has to be adapted. And we don't have this. We don't have the Roman law has a very different approach to contracts. It says contracts have always to be fulfilled, whether things have changed or not. That doesn't matter. That's also something that makes it very difficult to talk to China. China is built on individual trust, as I just said, while our business life is built on contracts, not so much on trust. Of course, trust is also important. But essentially, if we do a big deal, we want to see the contract. We have a contract first. In China, you have always economic and social elements that drive a business relationship. In our country, or in our Western region, you much more depend on the economic drivers of what's going on. The social drivers or the social elements are not so important. So, last element, Guanxi. That's a short example how it's always with alcohol, connect with alcohol. Don't ask me why, but it's an easy thing to overcome this. You just take plain water and it looks the same as the Chinese. So, Guanxi is not corruption. Many people in the West, if they write about China, they say, Guanxi, that's corruption. It's not corruption for some reasons. But first of all, Guanxi, what is it? It is a kind of a system where all the members of the family play, they are in the inner circle of my relationships. And then I have a kind of an outer circle with close friends. And then I have a third circle, which is kind of outside family friends or people. And this is a whole system of personal relationships. This is important in such a huge country, where institutions sometimes don't work. It's very important to have your own network. You can find this also in Europe. If you go to Italy, you already have this. It's much more important to know different persons instead of knowing the procedure, administrative procedure, because the administrative procedure will not work. But if you go to Mr. X or Miss Y, it will work. That's also true in our country, in our region. So this is society is founded on relationships, and that's the important thing about why I say it's not corruption. It's founded on mutual relationships, So if I give you something, you have to give me something, and it's not I give you something and then it's done, But it's kind of a balance. We help each other, and of course there is a danger that this ends in corruption. That's certainly true. But the normal Guanxi will not be corruption. It will much more be a way of, help each other to get forward. So you have also, if you consists of obligations, and an important thing is it takes a long time to build Guanxi. You cannot go to China and say, okay, let's have 5 days and then do a contract. It will not work. It will not work. So you have to start. You have to go there. You have to come back. You may go there again, and build contacts or build Guanxi over time. And after a while, they will start. If you are an honest man or an honest person, they will start to trust you, maybe, because they see, oh, he has done serious business. And once you have this trust, you can continue to do business with the Chinese. And if you were not able to establish this trust, you will, how we say in German, über den Tisch gezogen werden. That's maybe something we have to know. Guanxi is certainly important in this. The building of Guanxi can take several years, not several days, not several months, but several years. And that's also something that's difficult for Western businessmen, businesswomen to understand, because we are used that things move fast. And that may be a difference. It's not the business itself, Guanxi. You cannot just say, oh, let's establish Guanxi and then we have the business. But it's something that helps you to do business. That's a kind of an insurance that helps you to do business. It's personal relationships, not organizations, again, not organizations. It's not between organizations, it's between people. Personal relationships, very important. It's worthwhile to invest time. And one hint here, do not rely exclusively on politicians, because they change. We will see this in autumn. Now, if you go to China now, and if you try to do business now in China, there is one problem in the air, the changing system. In October, the leadership will change, and now everybody is trying to find out which direction will this take, and so it's very hard to rely on politicians. Little presence, not necessarily valuable ones. As soon as are they too valuable, it's corruption. We're aware of this. But little presence are not corruption. And so little presence help, and they are the oil to lubricate the building and maintaining of Guanxi. And you will experience this very quickly when you go to China. You will see there is no meeting with people without exchanging presence. There's no way, always. So my recommendation, if you have 25 very small presents in your pocket, something very about from Switzerland, that will extremely help you to get around. Even if it's, as I said, it doesn't have to be valuable, just have, I don't know, a small knife or whatever. And if the Chinese partner gets the feeling that you're just trying to take the shortcut, building up Guanxi, trying to rush things through, you will have a hard time to establish a successful business in China. I made the director or manager of the Citroën back in 1995, I think it was in the airplane. And we flew back from Beijing to Frankfurt. And so I got to talk to him, and I said, how is it in China, and so on and so on. And he said, oh, see, it's a very difficult business environment. I've been there for a couple of years. We tried to build up this Citroën factory, and nothing works. It didn't it didn't work. We carried on and discussed, and it didn't work. And then he said, we finally decided to stop the project. So I invited everybody for a last big dinner, just to kind of cut it down. And then he said, after this big dinner, all of a sudden, everything worked. Everything worked. Everything fell in its place. And he said, it took me 5 years to learn how important it is to have dinner with the Chinese. And I'm a Frenchman. For a Frenchman, for him, that was something very big surprise. Now my suggestions, so if you go to China, that's the most important part. Actually, I could reduce my speech to these 5 points. Use curiosity first, not criticism. Go there and learn, and then criticize. Don't go there and criticize and, it's still allowed to criticize. It's still allowed to be very critical about, what's going on in other parts of the world. It's also very good to be critical about what's going on in this country. That's also something I would look at. Learn before you judge. Know something about the country before you make decisions or judgments. Be flexible and understanding. Not everything will work the way it works here if you go to China. Some things are completely different. Be adaptive, be respectful, be appreciative. Remember that even if things do not happen the way you think they should, this does not necessarily mean that your view is the right one. So that's maybe a little bit pessimistic end of my speech, but I think it's very important to go there without any prejudice. Just go there, look at what you see, look very critically on what you see, and then make up your mind and start to be critical. So that's all I have to say, I guess. I'm sorry for this a little bit disaster of my presentation. They will not invite me next year, I guess. But I will survive this. Thank you.